I'm Josh Allen, and welcome to the Baked In Podcast, where I sit down with industry innovators to uncover the unique ideas and values that are baked into their businesses and have led to extraordinary success. This week, we're joined by Jeff Stevens, the visionary founder of Wellbeing Brewing. If you've ever wondered how to build a mission-driven company that not only thrives in a competitive market, but also challenges industry norms, this is an episode you won't want to miss. Jeff has taken the craft beer world by storm with a bold idea, creating non-alcoholic beers that don't just taste great, but also align with a lifestyle of balance, health, and mindfulness. From humble beginnings to national recognition, Wellbeing Brewing is redefining what it means to enjoy a beer without the alcohol. But this conversation is so much more than just beer. How do you define the NA category, and who's the real consumer? What does it take to scale a business while staying true to your core values? And what are the challenges and opportunities that keep a founder like Jeff up at night? Pour yourself a glass and let's roll. So I kind of wanted to jump in initially and talk about competition because I'm really fascinated about, obviously the NA space is growing rapidly.
Yep.
But then you got somebody like Liquid Death who's also in this space.
Yeah.
Like tell me who you view as your competition or your biggest competition. And I'd love to just sort of talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, and I think what you're asking is it's more of a category question because I don't know if we have competition. We're not big enough to where we compete with Athletic, let's say. Although at this point, I think everyone growing the sector, we're all in that part together. And I still think we haven't got to the point where we're competing with each other, if that makes sense.
But do you look at, like you're saying, is the category mindful drinking versus non-alcoholic beer?
Yeah, and that's one of the great questions. And it's no one in the industry quite has figured out what we even call the category. We don't know what to call it at retail. There's been tons of discussion.
And they don't know where to put it because it's hard to
put
find
it. It is. It's one of the weird things. About what the category is called. Where do they put it? Do they put them all together? Are all the things in an aisle? Is there beer still in the beer aisle and the spirits are in their spirits places that, So I think everyone has been asking that question. So because the category is growing, it hasn't been really a competitive thing.
So is there as an aside, is there a particular retailer or group of retailers that's doing it really well that you think should be the model of that? Is like what is the most effective way? Is it when it's all grouped together and I want non-alcoholic so I can find the mocktails and the seltzers and the spirits and the beer, or is it being in your own category?
I personally think, well, here's who I would follow. Total Wine. People have a lot of, ups and downs with Total Wine, depending on which side of the business you are with them. I will say that they are the most innovative, saw this category coming, have been one of our oldest buyers. They do probably the most work as a retailer to make the experience the best for the consumer. So I would generally follow what they're doing. And
what are they doing?
They still have they do a lot of in-dial stuff, so they have a lot of sections. They are now putting all of this stuff in a single section, and they're remodeling stores to do that. So that would be my guess is where we're going. A store within a store, the non-alcoholic things are together.
Okay. And do you, from your perspective, do you see movement? Do you see a difference in movement when it's together versus, or is it too disparate to really be able to judge?
It's too disparate to be able to judge at this point. Whether that actually increases sales or not. And I think we're just doing it now. I think it's sort of evolving this as we speak. People are trying these things.
And in terms of the customer, so I'm a customer.
Okay.
But I'm not, I wasn't, knock on wood, I wasn't alcoholic. I don't have a problem with alcohol. I have a couple glasses of wine on date night every couple of weeks, but I try to stay fit. I'm up every morning at 4:30. Thank you. I got kids and I'm chasing around. So I just don't, the days of being able to have a drink or a couple drinks at night passed me by a long time ago. So, but I really love beer and I like the taste of beer.
Yeah.
So I got introduced probably through Athletic, primarily doing some events and stuff that they were sponsoring, and so you sort of see it and saw your stuff, and obviously being local. But what percentage, or do you know the percentage of the sober community or sober drinkers versus just people like me that are trying to be more mindful of alcohol consumption? Is it an equal thing, or how do you view it?
Oh no, I think people like you that are just being more mindful of alcohol consumption are 80% of the market.
80, okay.
Oh yeah. And that is the tipping point. That was the tipping point. I think when we started, we catered to people like me who used us, who wanted to go out, who went out, was in alcohol situations all the time. There's nothing ever good to drink, and so we were a real tool that people would reach for. And I think that still exists. Obviously, people who are totally sober who go out and want to, still socialize and be out all the time. But I think the growth of the market and where it's just become a mass consumption is everyone else, just everyone who drinks alcohol, who just wants to drink a little less, who wants to mix us in their sessions, who wants to enjoy us on a Tuesday night. And I think that's where the market's just exploded.
Right. And we've seen, obviously we've seen a little bit of a slowdown in the craft beer industry.
We have.
Is craft non-alcoholic beer immune to that slowdown, or is seltzer outpacing beer even in non-alcoholic, or spirits versus wine? Is it a different muddled category of what's happening when you throw the NA label on it because are the same challenges facing the non-alcoholic beer industry that they are the regular beer industry?
I don't think because we don't have alcohol in, I think that's the main thing that's facing the regular beer industry is the alcohol itself.
Okay.
I think people are just drinking less. And I don't know if prices, inflation, there was a lot of things that happened with the price of just all cans and everything, that the price went up. So I think people maybe traded down in the beer category and then are drinking less alcohol. But for our category, there's a ton of people in it. Is it beer? Is it wine? Is it spirits? Is it hop waters? Is it different kinds of things? The liquids are all getting reinvented. Lighter things. Do people want craft beer exactly, or do they want hoppy refreshers and less calories? And so there's so many entrants in the non-alcoholic space that I think retailers are overwhelmed, wholesalers are overwhelmed. They're like, don't present any more stuff to us. We're tired of, everyone and their uncle has a non-alcoholic version of something that they're coming to the market with. Having said all that, the category is still growing, and retailers have to figure it out. They haven't quite expanded the shelf space or figured out how many they want to put on the shelf and what's going to sell and all that stuff. So it's a category that's growing, but it's very much in flux.
Sure. Is there an advantage or a disadvantage to being an NA brand specifically? So as opposed to Heineken having a line extension, or AB having a couple of line extensions that are non-alcoholic, or just a traditional brewer taking the Budweiser name and slapping on a non-alcoholic version.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I'd love to know what you think, because only being a non-alcoholic product, does that give us more credibility? Is there value to that? And I would say there is, because we focus on it. It is our 100% of our business, where it's always been an afterthought at the big guys breweries. They've never cared what their products taste like until recently.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think as somebody who's trying to run a purpose-driven business, mission-driven, to read about you and what you do and why you do it is part of the attractiveness to the brand, right? And,
sure.
And same thing for Athletic, even the same thing for Liquid Death, actually. Like that attempt to make a non-alcoholic thing still be fun, still be cool, still be something that you're not embarrassed to hold in your hand at a barbecue or a bar. That has value to me, as opposed to a brand just extending the line just to capture a few more points or make up for the lost revenue that, as they see things going down because of the intentionality of what's happening. So certainly from my perspective, but I, excuse me, sorry, JB. But I follow brands, and I'm interested in that kind of stuff, and it's important to me, and I'm making purchasing decisions
based on that. Yeah, I was in the business for a long time, the advertising business, and one of my favorite brands or most admired brands that I worked on was Margaritaville, and it's an idea as much as it's anything, right? It's a song, first of all. But then this song became something that you can slap on any product. Didn't matter. They licensed their brand, all kinds of things. And it has this very clear idea of what, when you hear the term, there's a very specific thing that comes into your head, right? And I think that's what's so powerful about that brand. And working on this brand, Wellbeing, it's a non-alcoholic beer, but my hope is that we can make it other things. It's something that people strive to do in their lives. You know, you see it as a term for where people want to go, right? They want to have more well-being in their life.
And it's already some seltzer. You have some seltzers, is that right?
We do.
Okay.
We have a couple seltzers with some CBD in them, which are really nice, really, really delicious. And I think that's a huge market that is going to grow and turn into all kinds of interesting products.
As somebody who doesn't know anything about the regulations, can you sell CBD seltzers anywhere? Is there
Yeah, the regulations, as someone who, it's good. You probably know as much as the biggest expert. Because, you know what I'm saying? I don't think anyone knows what's going on with the regulations. Here's what I do know. There's this thing called a farm bill, and it makes hemp legal in all 50 states, and they keep renewing it. So hemp is legal. That means CBD is legal. And that the gray area is the Delta 8, the Delta 9, the products that actually make you high. But anything derived from hemp is legal on that level. But then there's all kinds of different state regulations and retail regulations and insurance and banks and all that stuff of whether you can actually do it or not. But we've been doing it, and we sell them in Missouri. And
so based on the brand mission, you wouldn't ever produce a THC seltzer.
Well,
how does that fall into the well-being and sort of this whole thing?
Yeah, and for me, it's a huge thing that I have put a lot of thought in, because I come from recovery. I'm a sober guy. I don't drink alcohol, and all the people in recovery are sober that go to my meeting. But cannabis is an incredibly interesting plant. It does a lot of good things for health. It's effective in so many ways. It's the best antioxidant. It's a huge anti-inflammatory. There's nothing better as an anti-inflammatory than cannabis. I mean, it's an amazing product. And so when you look at what alcohol is really good at, helping people go to a bar, you lose your inhibitions and you hook up, right? That's why people want to drink. Sex sells, and it's always been the magic of our industry. Connection's not happening as much. People aren't going out as much. There's a loneliness crisis. So, and people aren't drinking as much. So can we design a product with some kind of plant and or cannabis or euphoric that does the same thing that alcohol does, but without all the harm that alcohol creates? It helps people connect to each other. It puts them in a different state of consciousness to where it lowers their inhibitions, to where they have a deeper connection. And I think we'd be fools not to look at that kind of stuff as a product served at bars.
But there are some addictive qualities, and there's some 100%. Challenges. So
absolutely. But those are known. I mean, cannabis has been around for a long time, so it's not like they're going to sneak up on us. But I think when you look at harm reduction, societal health, getting people, if you could get people to drink less and use cannabis more in the same situations, you've improved societal health. So I think that's where we come from on it. Having said all that, if it's not right for you, don't use it.
So also in terms, we talked about the grocery aisle, but you're also selling your products online.
Yeah.
How does that, what's the makeup of your product mix, D2C, online versus in convenience stores, grocery, traditional retail?
Yeah, it's probably like a tap room for a brewery if they do wholesale. It's a significant part of your overall business as far as cases go, but it's more profitable, obviously. And I'd guess it's 20% of our business online. Yeah, we still do a robust business online, and we just went through January, which is always the big month. Everyone comes and wants to drink non-alcoholic beer in January.
So you get a big blip and then the fall off, and then you just hope the fall off's higher than it was the February before.
That's right. February is always our I always try to convince people, like, it's Lent. Come on, everyone. What's the excuse? But yeah, no, February is always, I think it's the worst beer month for everybody, really.
So, and you mentioned as we were walking up this morning that you're doing all contract brewing.
Yeah.
So you don't have a manufacturing facility.
No.
You've outsourced that.
Yeah, from the beginning. Yeah, I'm not a brewer, and I never had the heart to own the brewery part of it. I was a marketer and a brand storyteller and did on-premise events, and that's where the world I came from. So, and I love the liquid. I love good beer, the non-alcoholic beer. But to make it was never my thing. But I owned these big machines that take alcohol out of beer and park them at breweries.
So somebody who knows enough about fermentation to be a little bit dangerous.
Okay.
Me.
Yeah, you do.
Explain to me.
Bread and beer are the same.
They are. So
Kinda.
Explain to me how you de-alcohol a beer. Because I think as I was reading, doing some research, different than what some folks do, which is there's never alcohol, or it's not fermented in the same way, and then it's basically just fizzy water that has some flavoring in it. You're actually creating beer in a traditional manner, and then I saw the term vacuuming out the alcohol.
Right.
What does that mean?
That's interesting. So we make it both ways, and there's probably other ways now, but but the vacuum distillation method it's a giant still, and so what you're doing is brewing the beer just like you would normally. You put the beer in a bright tank, and instead of taking it to canning, you are going to run it through this giant vacuum distillation machine, which basically means it puts the beer in a vacuum, lowers the temperature that the alcohol is evaporated at or distilled off at. So you don't scorch the beer, you don't ruin it as you would if you boiled it off.
Okay.
And
is that what some people do, is boil it off?
You can boil it off, but you're going to scorch the beer. So no one does that.
Okay.
What if you want to make it the other way, where you don't let it ferment? It still ferments. It just you use specialized yeast and let it ferment at such a low rate that you can boil the alcohol off. I think you boil it off very slowly, or it doesn't ferment enough to create the alcohol. And then there are some yeasts that ferment but don't create alcohol as the byproduct, but it still ferments the product.
Okay.
So there's all kinds of different ways and technology.
But you've got this big, and so with whoever is doing the contract manufacturing for you, you own that big still.
Well, yeah, I do, but not anymore. I'm at Schlafly, and we make it the way Athletic makes it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of the way that most people in the industry make it. Is just a slow fermentation method, a low fermentation method. But there's a difference in the product, and it's like anything. It's a very subjective thing. Some people like it this way, some people like it this way. So it just depends. I think personally, if you're trying to mimic craft beer, I would use vacuum distillation.
Okay. And you're not doing that at all, or you have a couple beers that are that way?
No, we're not doing that at all currently. Gotcha. But maybe someday soon we'll get back into doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, I still have one of these giant machines that.
Do you have an interest in ever building your own facility and controlling the manufacturing?
Yes. Now that I've been through it, I can see. And everyone told me this when I first started, and I just didn't listen to them. And only if you're going to scale. If you aren't going to scale, then you don't need to worry about it. But if you want to scale, you have to own your own facility. I'm convinced of that. You just can't depend on anyone else.
Have you run into that issue
everywhere?
Maybe you run into the issue where you've been able to sell more beer. You can't get your hands on it.
It's been the only problem of our business is we can never make enough of our product.
That's got to drive you crazy. Would drive me crazy. Yeah, that's just. I think we were talking. We got a big order for something with a new customer, and I mean it's well beyond what we probably should have said yes to. But we just in 30 years we don't say no to anything. We just figure it out. But at least it's it's our ovens, it's our mixers.
You know what you're doing.
We can figure it out. There's always another hour in the day to try to get it done. But to have to not have that control would be a challenge. And so, I mean, how have you gotten past that? Is it just diversification and finding more contract brewers, or do you just grow at a rate that your contract brewer can grow and accept that? Like, how do you handle that?
We've really, for us, we've just survived. We've just blanked through this last couple of years with our main brewer. As you know, we talked about O'Fallon. It's not a secret that went bankrupt and got liquidated, and that really hurt us. We had to move, and
they had done it for you for the first 5 or 6 years.
Yeah,
is that right? Okay,
they had done it for us for the first 5 or 6 years, and the new place, and then we moved to Schlafly, and they're doing fine. They're doing fine, but they have their own challenges, as anyone in the beer industry does, and you're not their primary product. I mean, fair enough. You're just not what they're focused on. They're focused on their own brands, and so you can't scale. And
Are there contract brewers that are? Well, I'm sure there's contract brewers that don't even have their own brands. Right?
There are.
Are there some that are focused solely on the NA brand or
There's
category?
a couple. And it's funny, one of the best ones in the country that helped a lot of our competitors was this brewery called Octopi up in Michigan, Wisconsin, somewhere. And then they got bought by the Japanese conglomerate Ashi and quit taking on new clients. And yeah, so there are a few that just do NA beer well, but not many that don't have their own brands and do NA beer.
Right.
Those are hard to find.
Yeah, because I just read something, or maybe it was the How I Built This with the podcast on Athletic, and I mean they've got 3 breweries across the country now,
and that's they raised a ton of money. The guy came from Wall Street, really understood the financial side of this and how to raise tons of capital, but they bought their own breweries,
right?
And
it's so capital intensive
capital intensive, 100%, and that's another. Side of it that, raising lots of money it is very capital intensive business.
So is the distribution, let's jump to that so that, because obviously the beer distribution business is old and it's convoluted and it's very controlled by certain entities, not all of which I understand, but a lot of regulations there. Are you selling with... Did you have to go through that same distribution channel with NA beer, or can you be on the back of a Coke truck or something?
We could. We haven't been. There are a few places that we are, but essentially the best way to market is through a good beer distributor. Like if I had my druthers, I would have great beer distributors in every market. It's a coin toss of whether you're going to find a good one or a bad one. And the contracts that you have to sign to be on them are incredibly restrictive, and so the beer wholesalers that I have now are good because the ones that I've ferreted through them all, and we've been at this long enough to where the ones that still buy from me are really good, and those are in maybe 10, 15 markets across the country. Everywhere else, we can sell direct to retailers. Too. So we sell to Total Wine, and they distribute us nationally in 200 and some odd stores that they're in. We can do that with anyone, and then we sell online, and we can also sell to retailers online for various markets. So there's a lot of places that we get to market, but going through a good beer wholesaler is the best way for us to get to market.
Why? Why is that the best? Because they just know
it's just their business. Yeah. They deliver cases of beer to a lot of places. But I agree. There's good ones and bad ones, and they are a antiquated, strange business in that they have a weird monopoly and the restrictions, and they've never had to compete the way other businesses do. So they have. But they have their own issues in capital intensive getting it from point A to point B, and it's not easy to. It's a heavy product.
Is everything that you're doing canned, or are you doing keg sales for? I mean, are you on draft at restaurants?
Yeah, draft's an interesting thing because NA beer is very delicate as far as it spoils because the alcohol preserves things, and when you take the alcohol out, it's hard to put in a keg because you can't control whether the keg's if it gets infected from a dirty tap line, it could cause problems. So not a lot of people have figured out kegs. We're using this natural preservative in our beer now that we started incorporating, I guess, a couple years ago, but it's been great. So we may get into kegs because I think the experience of
the preservative is for the canned. What's the shelf life of a canned beer, canned NA versus regular beer?
It's the same.
It's the same.
Yeah, and I think you want to drink any beer within 6 months if you can. Beer is like bread. It's a fresh thing, right?
Right.
Yeah. So there's definitely when you drank a beer that's over 6 months, there's just something. It's not wrong, but it's not fresh.
So the keg thing is. Because obviously as restaurants and folks get more into,
I'd love.
You're seeing more mocktail menus. You're certainly seeing it. We had Matt Longville on from Off Elm Bar not too long ago, and I mean they're thinking about it. It's part of every craft bar's scene is a mocktail list and non-alcoholic options, and I
think that's where the excitement and energy is definitely on premise, doing fun getting on menus, helping bars. If people are drinking less, bars are probably not having their best business year. People that makes sense. I think that industry is down, and the more that we can bring to helping bring people in and reprogram nights and think about how are we going to get people off their couches to come to your bar? Is it the same kinds of events that used to work for alcohol, or do we have to reinvent why people are going to come? I don't know. And
you don't know the answer to that?
I don't know. I think you're sober now. You're not drinking, so you're going to come to a bar. Like, do trivia nights? Is it more intellectual nights? Is it more book clubs? Is it more post-running clubs? Is it more what kind of events are going to get people out? And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Those are really good questions.
So how do you, if we can kind of pivot a little bit to the mission-driven aspect of the brand, how do you ensure that kind of permeates everything that you're doing, and that the retailers can help you with that messaging? Mm-hmm. Obviously, you've got beautiful can design. Can the cans help with that messaging? How do you put that together so that this idea of well-being and mindfulness gets to the consumer different than the other brands that are out there?
I think you try it on the cans. I've always been a big believer that you should be able to tell everything about a brand from the can. And when and being in the beer industry for a long time, I've stared at Budweiser cans for a long time. As a creative, I've stared at Rolling Rock cans and Grolsch cans and brands that I've worked on. And you find the things about it and the little sayings that they have and the history that they put on their cans and the Beechwood aging thing and the Rolling Rock 33 and all the stuff about what these brands are about. And so all of our cans, I think, have a lot of that on there. They have things for you to discover. The Victory Wheat has a awesome little blurb about what it means to compete. The Intentional IPA has the Science of Well-Being, How to Live Your Best Life, as a little blurb on the back of the can. There's so much to discover on these things. That Hellraiser has some fun stuff on it. And I get those a lot from people. They do discover them. They do, right? I love this. They found it. And so I think that's a really interesting place to start, is that your can. We also do a lot of wholesaler rep communication. And so if you're a wholesale rep, right, you sell beer and you sell alcohol, or you're in the business, you drink a lot. And at some point, just like we all do, they have to start looking at how much they drink, right? And I think wholesaler reps start to discover the joy of our product on a Tuesday night, on a Wednesday night. And
what form does that communication take with those folks?
It's a newsletter.
Newsletter.
Yep. Okay. So we try to put out a newsletter, and it's hard to control another company's health and wellness program. Your wholesaler's health and wellness program. Do they offer gym memberships? Do they all that kind of stuff? No idea. But from a lifestyle standpoint, it is good to start talking about these things. I've had reps who've lost 30 pounds when they stopped drinking, who quit fighting with their wives, who all the things that happen when you just quit drinking as much, whatever, their lives improve. And those become the stories that you want to continually pass on. In a business where they sell alcohol and it's their business, and we're not against alcohol, and we can't be against alcohol,
right?
It's and we aren't, because our businesses are linked together. We make our stuff at a place that makes alcohol, and they're so it's never about that, but it's about finding the right balance. It's about, and I think everything is that, right? It is finding a balance with all of this stuff. So anyway, that's how we try to bring it out, and those really are our main customers. Those are the people that we can really affect the most, is our reps and bartenders and servers of our product, that can really help us, that we can actually meet, versus, all the social media that you do for consumers. And we don't have the money to compete on that level.
Sure, absolutely. We'll be right back after a quick break.
Cool.
Did you know that businesses can help protect our planet with every sale? That's the idea behind 1% for the Planet, a global movement where companies pledge 1% of their top-line revenue to environmental causes. Since 2002, members have given nearly $700 million to nonprofits tackling critical issues like climate change, conservation, and food insecurity. At Companion Baking, we're proud to be a part of this mission in 2025. We're contributing through local partnerships, like donating $50,000 in baked goods to the St. Louis Area Food Bank and supporting regenerative agriculture through our partnership with ADM. Learn more about how 1% for the Planet is driving change at 1%fortheplanet.org. So in terms of this purpose mission, I mean, how big is your team?
Okay, so there is no team. It's
Really?
just me. Yeah, my wife helps with social media, but we had a rep for a while named Tom Halasco, who a lot of people know, and he went on to Ritual and got a great job. And he was more of a cocktail guy, but wonderful.
You're doing all of this by yourself.
I am doing all this by myself. We had a joint venture that we were hoping to happen with Schlafly at one point. I don't know if you remember this. They announced it, so it was kind of in the press.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and so I don't think I'm talking out of school by saying that we were doing a joint venture with them. I was going to come on, and they would be the team, their sales and marketing team, their reps, their whatever. The joint venture fell apart for a number of reasons. They pulled out at the last minute, and that was devastating at the time, but turned out to be probably a really good thing that happened, just seeing where they're at and with their business.
But as you look forward, I mean, at what point do you think you can keep doing this by yourself?
Well, it's interesting. We hope to have some news to announce in the next week. You know how these things are.
Sure.
About
I always miss the timing on these things. You know that I get somebody on here and next week they got the big announcement.
Yeah. But that will happen. When are you launching this? When is this going up?
Probably mid-February.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll talk about it, and then if it comes to pass, we can run it, and then if not, if it like all falls apart, I guess it won't even matter. That's funny. So do you know that? Yeah. So we've been trying to do a deal with CBD Kratom. Do you know who they are? They are a retail store here in town, and they own retail stores all across the country. And they sell CBD and Kratom and all kinds of these products. They have one in the West End, right on Euclid. But they're a local company and have done really, really well. And they're in the space that they put a lot of plants into their products. And I think that's a growth space. They're not in our space, non-alcoholic beer, but they want to get into the wholesale business, and we are an entree into that. So I think this whole deal will hopefully be closed by the time you've heard this and the press release has gone out. And for us, that is the team. So they have a team. They are in the business of this and how they manufacture and all that stuff. So they make drinks right now, so they know how to make beverages. And so
would you potentially bring that manufacturing of the beverages in-house, or they don't?
Potentially, yes. I think we're looking at a place. We're looking at places to possibly own or they have other places that they make at too. So we'll see where that all comes in. I do think where we currently make at Schlafly is for what we're making there, the products that we make there, I think everyone's happy with them. Sure. So, but
as you said, I mean, in order to scale and to grow,
if you want to scale, you got to find other places. So, and
I mean, does Total Wine want more beer on a regular basis?
Total Wine wants more. Everybody wants more beer on a regular basis. We're always behind, and I don't know if that's the nature of the business. You're in manufacturing team.
I mean, it's not in the nature of my business because
you don't miss deadlines because you have a product that you got to get out, right?
Correct. Right.
You can't miss deadlines.
Right.
You can't be.
Right. But our team knows, I guess, to a certain degree, what we can sell and what we can't sell. I mean, we can be intentional about making sure that doesn't happen. But to me, the credibility with my customers the fulfillment of orders, especially through the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic,
Yeah.
fill rate has become the absolute most important metric to people
Okay.
in terms of retention and keeping
Fill rate means
customers
there's
happy.
stuff on the shelf.
Fill rate for them means if I place an order with you
Yeah.
for whatever your lead time is, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks,
Yeah.
that what percentage of that order is on the back of that truck when I come to pick it up or when you ship it to me and I open that back door.
Okay.
So if I order 1,000 cases and there's 900 cases, then it's a 90% fill rate. And
Gotcha.
the expectation with distributors and most customers is like a 99.5%. Like that's
Yeah,
something might fall off the truck. You might run into an
Sure.
ingredient shortage. Something might happen, but it's going to be a very, very, very small percentage.
Okay.
We have many customers that charge us back. Not only do they not pay for the product that doesn't show up as they shouldn't, but they then charge us for the inconvenience of expecting that product to be there, which then means their shelves are going to be short.
Yeah.
So for me, that's everything
Yeah.
is ensuring that we've got that communication and that we have that capacity. And do we run into situations where we're tripping over ourselves to make sure it gets made and gets out the door? Yes.
Yeah.
But it has become really the most critical thing, because what happened through the pandemic with labor shortages and ingredient shortages and just the complexity and chaos of the pandemic was people would order things and then the truck would show up and and be like 1 out of 7 pallets would be there.
Yeah.
Well, but how do they keep their shelves full? Because they wouldn't even know that they were going to be short. So they didn't find an alternative supply. The guy took the order and then he just didn't deliver it.
Yeah.
Or it didn't show up. And so we grew our business a lot coming through that, because the one thing we said we would do is fill the orders.
That's great.
And so
do you think that's is it good people? Is it a manufacturing efficiency thing? Is it a culture? Why are you able to do that? Because I find...
I think it's communication. So, I mean, I think there's no question that transparency in that process, because look, if you know what the capacity is, or Schlafly in the current state can tell you what it is. So what you have to be able to do is say, I'll take that order, but it's going to take me 6 weeks instead of 3 weeks. Or so it's that transparency right away.
Yeah.
It's not waiting until the day that truck's supposed to show up to say, hey, by the way, we didn't fill the order. It's giving them those other options. And folks can be creative and flexible and nimble if you have the upfront communication. So we've got to be able to forecast appropriately. We've got to have the relationships with our vendors to know that if we need an ingredient, if we need yeast, flour, salt, sugar, whatever it is, that we queue those things up to be able to fill those orders. But the communication was really the biggest thing, because they'll change the PO, right? Like if they order 1,000 cases and you know you're not going to have it, and you just say, look, make the PO for a week later, they'll change it so that you can still hit the fill rate, but the expectation, you're transparent in the expectation. And so that becomes a really critical component. So I mean, efficiencies, because we've been able to keep the business, then more opportunities have presented themselves to us, whether that's line item extensions from customers who maybe they weren't buying everything from us, they were buying 3 items from us, but now we're the only guy filling the orders, so they came back and gave us 6 or 7 items. You've got to be able to walk the walk, but the biggest piece was just being honest about where things stood. And that's great. And being able to communicate that.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah. So, and then just lining it up. And I mean, as you start to see, I mean, there's only so many times you want to tell them to wait a week, or wait 2 weeks. So you've now got to start to act to find those.
You got to deliver.
Right, to find the alternative sources of brewing, or line up your own manufacturing, or whatever it's going to take, so that you can say yes to those things. And then more comes to those that can fill orders. I agree. Really, I mean, it's changing a little bit. Obviously, people are getting back on their feet, and it's less of a problem than it was. But certainly for a handful of years, it was a big deal.
Yeah, I agree.
How do you feel like you're going to be able to work with other people?
Like the new. I think we'll see how that all. I'm excited to go back and work with a team again, or just have other people. I personally think, when you work at an agency, it's a really creative atmosphere. And that was my work life, was working at an advertising agency. So that's a really fun place to be. It's a good time. So hopefully going back and working with others will be the same thing. Our business is fun. That's why I like our business. The beer business is a blast.
Right. Now, based on all that experience in advertising, are you your own graphic designer and campaign or creative, or do you have an agency that you work with?
I grew up as a copywriter. I came up as a copywriter. So I am an idea person and a presenter and a seller and a writer. I write the copy and I come up with the concepts. But yeah, I can't design anything. Although I think I can sometimes, like in Canva now.
So who's doing the cool cans?
Yeah, I have this awesome. So he was. Do you remember Art Farm on Cherokee Street?
Absolutely. They used to do some T-shirts for us.
Oh yeah, really fun. So he was. I don't know what his job was at Art Farm, but he was a designer at Art Farm, and he might have been the designer at Art Farm. Steve Hicks is his name, and he's. I think he goes by Vertosa Designs now. But he's fantastic. And when designers are very particular. They're weird. They're different kind of people. I've worked with lots of,
Aaron Siegel, I love you. I'm mentioning that because we've worked, actually you and Aaron worked together at Momentum. So, but Aaron's he's been doing all of our stuff for 30 years.
If you can find a good designer that
and tolerate them.
Yes, then you should keep them for life. And he's great. And Steve's the best packaging. If you like his thing, if you like our packaging, if you like that vibe,
right,
he's the best.
Yeah,
for sure.
So what's next for Wellbeing as you look ahead? I mean, you mentioned a little bit with the seltzers and maybe the CBD. Obviously, the new partnership opens up some opportunities. Yep. But as you look down the road 3 to 5 years, like what are we going to see?
Yeah, I mean, I hope 3 to 5 years from now, I'd love to be a brand more in line like Margaritaville, where we have lots of different products. Beyond just non-alcoholic beer, that we have created a lifestyle brand that helps people live a life of well-being. And I think a lot, you say that and a lot of people will have what that means to them. But I think balance and sobriety and health and wellness and all that stuff, I think all those are there. I've been interested in that in my personal life, trying to struggle to lead that kind of life myself, as we all do. There's a spirituality mixed in there. There's a still going out and having fun, still going out and enjoying yourself, all the beer moments that you want. But I hope that's where we end up, and we help people on their journey.
As you envision that, does the distribution of those products, do the channels change? I mean, I don't know, honestly, I guess from like with C-stores and convenience stores, is there much of NA stuff? I mean, I don't see a lot in there. Like, do you envision that it becomes more every day so that you would pick up these kind of products at Quick Trip and Wally's and those kind of places where maybe that's not happening now?
I think we can make a natural energy beer that's got better energy than whatever's in those energy drinks right now. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Those energy drinks are not healthy.
Because the Victory Wheat is electrolytes, right?
Electrolytes. Right. And non-alcoholic beer is incredibly healthy. Just the stuff that's in it is the same stuff that's in bread, and it's got polyphenols in it. It's got a lot of natural antioxidants and anti-inflammatories. When you take the alcohol out, the actual liquid's really good, and then when you add electrolytes to it, it becomes this really interesting functional product. Better. So if people are drinking Gatorade or these highly sugarized energy drinks that cost 2 cents to make, and we can definitely make something healthier and does the same thing, is functional for convenience stores and places like that. I think that's where the growth should be for us.
Right, because it's not there now, right? I mean, you're not in any of those kind of places.
I don't think
traditional grocery only, really, and
it's
liquor stores.
Yeah, because you think a convenience store, you're walking in there for, they have big cans of what? Right. Like, what are we going to make? And it's young people, but we need to make something there. Right. And is the convenience store market going to want a health slice? I don't know. I go to a convenience store. There's nothing healthy in it.
I end up at Liquid Death, I bought a bottle of water, sparkling water.
Yeah, those pickle slices are kind of healthy.
Teas,
Have you seen those?
Which is all freaking sugar.
All sugar,
right?
All sugar. But I think so. I think convenience stores are going to start offering. I see them. You can find a banana. You can find those health. Some convenience stores are upgrading their offerings to err on the side of health, and I think we'll get there.
Sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting market.
So this mindful life of yours, outside of the the NAB, or what are you doing to stay active? And
I have started writing again. So I do a Substack on.
Terrific.
Yeah, and I bring a lot of my own experience with recovery and AA and 12-step living. And there's a lot of new groups and communities that are in this space that are help people on their journey from drinking or addiction to sobriety, and I'm involved in a lot of that, and I love all that, and so that's part of this well-raising idea of what we do and what I'm interested in doing. And then there's some funny T-shirt designs for that. Like if you are in that audience, you might want to wear one of our fun T-shirts or whatever that is. So I do that and hope to keep that going, and just continue like this. Like, you have this outside interest. You get to talk to people in your thing, and this podcast is awesome, and it keeps you engaged, right?
It's curious.
You're
Absolutely.
curious, and that's what I think. Yeah, so I have that outlet too, which is great.
Well, awesome. Well, Jeff, I can't tell you how nice it is to meet you.
Yeah.
Continued good luck. I'll be following along.
Yeah.
I
appreciate it, Josh, so much. Yeah, and I've enjoyed. It's funny you asked me, and I went back and listened to a bunch of stuff you've done with who's who in town and a lot of the entrepreneurial audience. And what a great statement to capture that energy on your show. And you can go back and listen to all these awesome brands and makers that have done stuff. So I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for the plug.
Yeah.
Have a great day. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much for joining me today. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed sharing these insights from folks I truly admire. Be sure and follow the show in your favorite podcast player to be alerted to newly released episodes. And share a comment if you have any feedback or future contributor recommendations.